Hello, readers of Every Word, and welcome to Every Word 365. I'm your host, Christina Munoz-Madsen, and today we're reading Ezekiel 44 through 48. 9 years ago, while I was leading this study, something awful happened on this day. Although the news item is no longer current, I thought I'd share my sentiment/message from that day. Following that will be some life lessons from Ezekiel, and my apologies for the long podcast today. This again is from 2015. Allow me to start with the horrific shooting and killing of a reporter and a cameraman that happened live on TV in Virginia. While I don't typically watch much news anymore, I couldn't pull myself away from the coverage. If you, like me, struggle to understand these kinds of things, let's remind ourselves that we simply cannot. But what we can do is listen to the Bible and what it says about how we all are created. With a sinful nature, Psalm 51:5, and a deceitful heart, Jeremiah 17:9, my least favorite message in the Bible, which means every single one of us has to fight the temptation of sin every single day. So we should actually be shocked when people we know, our friends, family, coworkers, don't hurt us with their words or with their actions. I'm not saying any of us is ever going to do what the killer did today, but there comes a point when we shouldn't be surprised when these horrific things happen. Awful things like Ezekiel is trying so desperately to warn others about. And it makes the importance of our own salvation so much greater. So that we all can be ready if today were our last day. I guarantee you, Allison Parker and Adam Ward had no idea that today, this is back in 2015, would be their last day on this earth when they left for work early that morning. Let's all be in prayer for the families going through hell on earth and the journalists that have a newfound fear regarding their industry. Always remember John 16:33. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Again, that is from a message that I wrote back in 2015 that I just wanted to share once again. So to wrap up this prophet's book, here's a question for you. What should we learn from the life of Ezekiel? And this is from a Got Questions link that I'm, of course, including. Ezekiel delivered God's messages with straightforward language that everyone could understand, whether they listened or not. Ezekiel himself was called to be a watchman, and God warned him that if he did not faithfully warn of the punishment for not following God, he would be held accountable for the blood of those who died in their sins. He did not hesitate in his mission and steadfastly followed God's instructions. Ezekiel had a passionate view of judgment and hope, and he reflected God's own sorrow over the people's sins. Ezekiel's sorrow was compounded by the death of his wife, an event that God forbade him to weep over. God used the death of Ezekiel's wife as a sign to the people of Judah. Just as the prophet lost his wife, the people of Judah would lose their temple. And just as Ezekiel did not show outward signs of mourning, the Jews would be overwhelmed to the point of silence by the sorrow they felt. The prophet Ezekiel experienced considerable opposition during his own lifetime, yet he doggedly expressed God's desire that the wicked not die, but turn from their wicked ways and live. His periodic speechlessness during his early years was broken when God empowered him to speak, and his tongue was loosened to speak the longest passage of sustained hope in the Bible. The burning, chopping, and scattering of his hair represented the fall of Jerusalem and the bringing back of God's remnant. The hopeful words climax in the promise of everlasting possession of the land, an everlasting Davidic prince, an everlasting covenant, and an everlasting sanctuary in Israel. Ezekiel's visions leap far ahead to a time when Israel will face an invasion by a coalition of nations led by a country from the north. The nations threatening Israel will be utterly defeated by the direct intervention of the Lord. This future victory demonstrates two things of note for the Jews in captivity. One, their nation would be restored, and two, after that final restoration, no enemy will ever successfully invade the Holy Land again. Ezekiel also sees the glory of the Lord return to the temple in chapter 43, the same glory that had departed in chapter 10. Ezekiel has shown all Christians that we are to be obedient to God's call on our lives. God told Ezekiel to groan with a broken heart and bitter grief for the coming judgment. And through his dramatic book, Ezekiel tells us the same thing. Judgment is coming. It will surely take place, declares the sovereign Lord. We, like Ezekiel, can warn others and can also share with them the good news of salvation in Jesus Christ. That's a long lesson and a lot of reading that I wanted to share, but I just think there's so much that we can learn from Ezekiel and not just dismiss it as doom and gloom and hard to read. So, of course, I'm also including the Bible Project overview video on Ezekiel because we have also finished another book. So congratulations. And I hope you're excited to start Daniel. It is a short book, but it is hopefully one that you know some of the story or maybe all of the story. I'll be curious to know what it's like to read every word of it as we go through the book of Daniel, which we start tomorrow. Happy reading. Have you ever wanted to go to Greece to see the ministry of Paul come to life? Well, now you can, thanks to Travel with Friends. In day 5, we'll wake up to visit the island of Crete. You'll visit the island of Santorini, which is perhaps the most breathtaking of all the Greek islands. The town of Thera has whitewashed houses, narrow streets, and open-air cafes that are accessible by cable car or mules. There will be several optional tours offered in Santorini, including excavations, or you may choose to spend the day shopping and exploring on your own. We hope to see you with us in Greece in 2025.